All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome and thank you so much for joining another Rural Library Network Conversation for Action webinar. I see we have lots of folks logging on, so thank you for participating today. I do see some chats coming through. Yes, we are in webinar mode, so you should only be seeing my video as well as the slides on the screen. So thank you all so much for joining. I cannot believe that is already November. Wow, where did the year go? I keep wondering for myself, how is it already November? But it is. So here we are. For those of you newer to the network, my name is Leslie Graham. I'm the Senior Director of Community Impact within Save the Children's U.S. programs. I will be leading today's Conversations for Action. And we're really excited to kick off the conversation today. But first, I do want to share, regrettably, that my co-lead for today's CFA, Regina Washington, she's traveling out of state and will not be able to join us today. So I'll be serving as the sole facilitator of today's webinar. And we're really excited that we get to hear from all of you. And I say hear, yes, we are in a webinar platform, so we're not going to verbally hear from all of you, but we have some unique ways to interact today in the webinar. So you might have noticed in the communications ahead of time, we are switching things up a little bit today. The format will be different, and our topic of focus for this month is really centered around hearing from all of you, hearing from you about the Rural Library Network, what you have found to be the most beneficial benefits or activities to date, and to really capture your ideas and input for strengthening this collective network even more. So we won't be having guest presenters. We won't even have a programmatic content area of focus as we typically do, but we're really hoping to have a fruitful kind of gathering today, hearing ideas directly from you all about really bolstering the impact of our Rural Library Network. Also, just a quick housekeeping note, we will be using a few different platforms for today's conversation. So just to get you acclimated right from the beginning, we'll be using the Zoom webinar. So you're here now in the Zoom webinar, but there are also some limitations to the platform, as I mentioned, for a really interactive nature that we're hoping for. So we've designed several chat box prompts. So go ahead and get yourself settled into the chat box. Make sure you locate that and can become familiar with how to use the chat box. We'll also have some polls and even a series of Jamboard. And if that sounds foreign to you, we'll talk a little bit more about what Jamboards are. That'll be a way that we capture your thoughts throughout today's webinar. So bear with us a little bit as we navigate some of these different features and these different platforms, but we'll ensure that everybody's comfortable with the technology tools that we'll be using throughout the webinar today. So first, we're going to go ahead and do a quick check-in. So if you could go ahead and locate the chat box, and we can advance to the next slide, please. Oh, one more, thank you. We're going to do a check-in. If you've already said hello, you're welcome to build on your initial responses by answering the questions that you see here on the screen. But we're going to just start with a simple, how are you today? Where are you located? We have folks from all over the US. And what do you find most beneficial about the Rural Library Network? So we'll give folks just a second here to put their responses in the chat box. Might have a little awkward silence, but that's okay. We'll give everybody a chance to think and respond. Welcome, South Carolina, Kansas. I have to say it's a bright sunny day here in Kentucky, so I apologize. It's a really gray day there in Kansas. Hello, Alaska, Arkansas, and California. Welcome, Utah. Lots of commonalities too in what's beneficial. Fellow lovers of books that you can connect with, hearing and seeing people from all over the country, learning how other rural and small libraries do their jobs each and every day. We have some first-time attendees, so welcome. Yes, part of a community, a network, a community of folks that all share a common vision and goals. Great learning opportunities from one another. Michigan, welcome. Connecting us to new information, resources. Wendy in Kentucky, welcome. Great. These are fabulous responses. If you're still typing or working on your responses, you're welcome to do so. Please keep the chat conversation going. All right, but now that we've checked in, or most everybody has had a chance to check in, we'll move on to the next slide, as we thought it might be best to really start the conversation with a recap of our goals, our purpose of the network, and to just kind of ground ourselves in that overarching vision that we have, and to share a quick overview of the current benefits and activities that we're offering through the network. So we'll start there. And just for those of you, especially newer to the network is a joint initiative of Save the Children and Partners for Education. So we recognize that in rural places, libraries are fundamental partners. They're essential to improving cradle to career outcomes for children. Partners for Education, or PFE, is a strategic initiative of Berea College, and for more than 25 years has worked to increase educational opportunities for students using a place-based approach to really accelerate outcomes for young people. Save the Children began working in the US in 1932 and focuses on supporting rural America's most vulnerable and hardest to reach children living in poverty, really helping to ensure that all children in rural America have a healthy, strong foundation to thrive as learners and in life. So together, Partners for Education and Save the Children, we collaborate a lot on lots of different joint initiatives. But at the heart of this network, we really believe libraries are uniquely positioned in rural places to serve as those long-standing, trusted partners within communities, sharing our collective vision for children's educational success. So this kind of foundational belief led us to launch the Rural Library Network, really as a way to advance place-based efforts and accelerate children's learning outcomes across communities, looking at libraries as true key partners in this vision. So the network officially launched in January of this year. It's crazy to think it was just this year, but it has grown significantly with over 85 registered members throughout rural America, representing 32 states, the District of Columbia, Canada, even Mali. And we're growing every single day. We are so very appreciative of our members and all the work that each of you do for children, for families, each and every day in your communities. I will also just take this opportunity to note that the map that you're seeing on the screen is representative of the states where we have registered members. So if you're noticing that your state is not highlighted in red, we might not have you down as a formal registered member of the network. The formal registration process rolled out several months ago, but we know that not everybody that attends our monthly webinars or as a part of our listservs and communication streams have actually taken a chance to register for membership. So if you haven't had a chance to do so, I will just encourage you to please use the link in the chat box that you're going to see here shortly to register for the network. It is free and it only takes maybe 5 minutes. So that will ensure that going forward, we have a true representation of membership across the country, and that as a registered member, you're continuing to receive all the benefits and the communications that the network has to offer. All right, on our next slide, you're going to see that, we're hoping to really do a recap of what's been implemented thus far. We know that this conversation today is all about getting your ideas, your thoughts on expansion. But before we head into that, we thought it would be helpful to share just a current recap of where we are right now. So far to date, we've had a lot going on. Truly, we have, and we hope that you all have been able to take advantage of all of these different opportunities. So just to kind of run through the laundry list here, we've had our monthly webinars. Many of you are familiar with those. So we call those our Conversations for Action. They are held on a monthly basis and focus on a variety of topics that we'll actually take a look at here on the next slide. But we also have our annual summits, such as the Rural College Access Summit, the Rural Library Summit. We'll talk more about that at the end of today's webinar. We've also had fellowship opportunities. Many of you are actually fellows right now, a part of the cohort of 22 library leaders that are actively engaged as our current cohort of fellows. We've also offered various professional development scholarships, such as covering registration and travel costs for attending ALA's annual conference or ARSL's annual convening, as we really want to continue to promote professional learning opportunities for network members. New to come is under construction, but hopefully soon to be shared, is a newsletter for our Rural Library Network members. So that will be coming soon to share highlights of the work occurring across the country, to share resources, funding opportunities, etc. And then the other exciting part of the network that we've been able to stand up this year has been related to special funding opportunities, such as National Library Week. We did a nice recognition there, and we're able to allocate some dollars to select applicants. We participated in 100 Days of Reading Challenge and provided funding to support local reading challenges this summer, as well as we're able to provide some First Book Marketplace credit for SEL-focused initiatives within your libraries. So across these initiatives combined, we've allocated close to $100,000 to our rural library members just this year alone, which is pretty remarkable. And we know that folks are so appreciative of those dollars flowing into their communities. Peer networking is another element of the network. It's been a bit limited thus far, as we've done quite a bit virtually through webinars, but hopefully this is something that we can do even more of throughout 2022. All right, on the next slide, we'll do a very quick recap of some of the topics that we've had for our monthly webinars thus far this year. If you've been a part of the network for a while now, most of these will look familiar to you, and hopefully you had a chance to take advantage of all of these monthly webinars that we've been hosting. So we've covered an array of programmatic focused topics. So things like summer learning and STEM models and arts and humanities and social emotional learning. We've also covered other more technical topics, such as resource sharing or fundraising. We've tried as best we can to highlight the work of our rural local libraries and network members directly, so that you all can hear from each other about some of those practices that you're implementing, but also have tried to engage other national partners, other national organizations, such as First Book, such as Scholastic, engaging other experts in the field so that you all can hear from them directly about best practices within particular areas. We hope that is that quick recap is helpful. And while we're definitely excited for all of the benefits we've been able to provide throughout the year, we also recognize that to even strengthen the network even more, we need your ideas, we need your input. So that's really the focus of the rest of the webinar today, is to really strengthen the kind of contributions from all of you as network members related to how we continue to build out these network offerings. So now is truly the time where we want to hear from you. So if you go to the next slide, we're going to transition over to Jamboards, and Jamboards might be new to you, and that's okay. We'll kind of talk it through here briefly. But this is a great way to actually interactively and in a virtual space, share your ideas, your thoughts, your contributions. So if we could go ahead and actually show the Jamboard just to get a preview for folks, that might be helpful. All right, so there you should be seeing the Jamboard. If this is new to you, how this will work is we will actually be putting a link in the chat box. And so once that's there, you'll actually click on that link. It will take you to the Jamboard in a new screen in your internet browser. And once you're there, you'll notice that there are 3 boards to scroll between. You'll see those little arrows there at the top where the cursor's hovering. And so you'll scroll between each of these different boards. And we're just asking that you take the next 10 minutes to contribute your ideas to each board. You're going to use that prompt top guide your responses. So you're simply going to use the toolbar there on the left side of the screen. You can see the cursor kind of going there on the left. And there's an option to add a sticky note. You see the sticky note popped up on the screen, and that's where you simply just type your ideas, whatever it is. And then once you click out of that, it will save it automatically. So you can add as many sticky notes as you'd like, as many ideas as you'd like. We just ask that you kind of navigate through the boards, give it some thought, and add your contribution. So just to get you acclimated, we have 3 prompts. So the first is really thinking about expanded benefits. What expanded network benefits would be of most interest to you as a rural library member? So these are things, benefits, activities, right? Anything that could be offered to network members. Toss your ideas there. On the second board, you'll see what additional topics might you be most interested in hearing about on our monthly Conversations for Action webinars. So we just reviewed that kind of laundry list of different topics, but if there are things that you're really interested in hearing more about, plop that there on board number 2. And then on the third board, it's kind of a catch-all, right? Any other feedback that you have, other ideas to really strengthen the rural library network. So you're welcome to add those contributions there. So as I mentioned, we'll take about 10 minutes to give everybody a chance to think about the prompts, really reflect, navigate to the Jamboard, and share your ideas using those sticky notes. Great, thank you all. I see some great ideas being populated. So just to kind of name a few things that I see coming up in the Jamboard, some interest as far as expanded network benefits could be around additional fellowships, speaking opportunities, additional grant opportunities, as well as other professional learning conference opportunities. There's an interest in kind of sharing additional resources or strategies like what's worked in libraries. Love to hear from other kind of special speakers. Great. Writing opportunities, sharing ideas for programs, for grant funding, for collaboration. Fantastic. Additional topics for the CFAs. See some nods to the topics that we've had already, so thank you for that. Other ways to engage community stakeholders. That's a great suggestion there. Additional topics on upcoming grants, more fundraising. So I see that across the board. So thanks for that. I think we hear you loud and clearly on that. Always a need. And then other feedback. Looks like there's some interest in the upcoming newsletter. So that's great to provide some additional ideas. Love the idea of connecting from around the country and really hope to have more and more communication between network members. Really great suggestions there. So thank you all for taking the time to add your ideas. If you didn't have a chance or we're having any issues with the Jamboard, you're welcome to use the chat box to add additional thought because this is actually, it's super helpful and to have this information as we head into our 2022 planning. So thank you so much. For those of you that have also expressed an interest in Jamboard and using that within your own libraries, actually very, very simple to set up. If you have a Google account, which many of us do, a Gmail account or Google, Jamboard is actually free. And so if you just do a Google search for Jamboard, once you're logged in with your Google account, you can easily set up a shared Jamboard space. You can change your background, you can add pictures and logos and all sorts of things. You can use it in lots of different ways, but it's very simple. Once it's set up, you can easily copy and share the link with others to contribute their ideas. So happy to share more if you have questions. I'm not a Jamboard expert, but it is a pretty simple and easy tool to use as you have more interactive sessions with participants. All right, so now we'll transition. We have a couple poll questions that we'd like to ask your input on. And it looks like we're actually having some issues with the polling feature in Zoom today, of course. That's how it always happens, right? But that's okay. So we're going to actually do it manually. So we'll have just a couple questions that we'll put into the chat box that we would encourage your responses to. So if you could navigate back to the chat box, you'll see a question there that we just hope for a reaction to related to the monthly webinars. So we're just hoping for input around the frequency with which you prefer having the Conversation for Action webinars. Right now, we're doing those on a monthly basis. So would you prefer that we keep that as is and maintain monthly basis, or do you prefer we reduce that to every other month? We know everybody's busy, but we also know how valuable those conversations are. So would love your feedback there. And if you have another suggestion, you're welcome to add that into the chat box also. So with what frequency would you like to have our Conversation for Action webinars? Great. I see some of those coming privately to us as hosts. Perfectly fine. You're also welcome to send those to everybody. Monthly is fine. Some prefer a bi-monthly if we're also adding the newsletter. Keep as is. Okay, you can keep kind of adding your feedback there. We'll monitor that. And we'll make sure we're also casting a wide net. We have a small group today, which is interesting. We usually have quite a large contingency of participants, but small group today, so that's perfectly fine. It's great to hear your all's feedback too. Great, easier for you to remember when it's always the first Wednesday of the month. I can relate to that. All right, so keep those responses coming. Great feedback there. And then the next question that we wanted folks in feedback on is thinking about special training sessions or workshops. So we know that we have our monthly webinars, but we're trying to also gauge interest in hosting some special sessions. So for example, potentially hosting a 2-hour workshop outside of the monthly webinars that folks could register for trauma-informed care within libraries. Like, is that something that might be of interest? Or a workshop or a book share on engaging families within libraries. So the question here is, let us know, might you be interested in participating in periodic workshops or special training sessions outside of the monthly CFAs? It could be a yes, it could be a possibly, not at this time. And if it's a yes, you're welcome to also add ideas. What kind of special sessions would you like or be interested, or special trainings might you want to take advantage of? We'll give you a second there. You'll see the question in the chat box also. Love being trained better, parent training, presenting skills. Wow, webinar training. Great. Not so much on book discussions, understood, but definitely workshops and trainings. Great. All right. Periodic trainings would be great. Okay. So we'll definitely take that into consideration. Thank you for the feedback. And that could be something where we offer some special opportunities. Folks that aren't interested on the topic don't need to register, but maybe folks that are could go ahead and register to take advantage of that opportunity. So great feedback there. And if you have additional ideas for specific topics that you'd be interested in, you're welcome to pick those in the chat box as well. All right, so I just really wanted to say thank you, sincerely, thank you for the great input today, your engagement both in the Jamboards and in the chat box. We'll be, as I mentioned, review these recommendations, review your feedback, and really take them into consideration as we're planning out our 2022 plans for the Rural Library Network. If you have additional thoughts, you're welcome to share those with us after today's webinar via email if you would like. So as we close out the webinar today, we wanted to actually take this opportunity just to remind you of a few activities within the network. So if we could go ahead and share the slide deck again, that would be great. We just have a couple more topics to cover. So as I mentioned at the top of the call, if you haven't registered for membership, please go ahead and do that. As I stated, it's free. It's open to all librarians and staff, whether you're in a public library or in a school library. We'd love to have you formally register and join the network. You will see that link in the chat box. So please take time, 5 minutes, hop on there and register if you haven't already done so. And thank you to those of you that are new members. We're really glad to have you today. On the next slide, if you haven't already heard, we are coming up on our annual Rural Library Summit. So this will be held on December 1st. This is last year, and it's only a few weeks away. The summit will actually take the place of our December webinar. So we hope that you'll plan to join us. The summit is free. I'll repeat, free, and it will be held virtually again this year. Last year was a great success. We know we had a lot of you join us last year. We had over 400 participants at last year's summit, and we had some really fantastic presenters and keynotes throughout the day. And this year will be no different, right? We have a great summit in store for you. So as I mentioned, it will be held on December 1st. It's a half-day celebration, all virtual, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's really a chance to celebrate the impact the libraries have on our youth and to recognize contributions of libraries to those cradle to career outcomes, especially for students in our rural communities. So through the summit, we have a couple different strands or topics that we'll be focusing on. Definitely how libraries can support cradle to career, how they can help to combat child hunger, right? Food insecurities, leverage a collective impact approach, and grow your impact on third grade reading outcomes. So we'll have lots of different types of sessions, lots of conversations about rural communities' health and well-being. We'll address community disparities. We'll have opportunities to connect and learn from one another. And we're also excited to share the keynote for the summit is the new president of NCFL, National Center for Families Learning, Dr. Felicia Cummins-Smith. So we know that we're in for a treat with her involvement and kicking things off for us this year. You will see a registration link to the summit in the chat box. So we encourage you to go ahead and mark your calendars for December 1st, register for today. You're also welcome to share the link for registration for the summit far and wide. Participation is open to anyone who wishes to join, anyone who plays a role in supporting libraries to accelerate educational outcomes for children. We hope you'll join us. And as I said, we have lots of great stuff in store there, and we'll continue to send out communications in advance of the summit just to make sure that everybody as part of the network is aware of that opportunity. All right, so that is all that we have for you today. A little bit shorter webinar for us, but really do want to just say thank you again for your thoughtfulness, your ideas, and your continued engagement in the Rural Library Network. We always love to hear from you, and we really do look forward to seeing you all at the summit in December. We've got a great 2022 in store. Can't believe we're already talking about next year, but it's right around the corner. So we look forward to all of our continued touch bases and all that we can offer through the Rural Library Network. So thanks so much and have a great rest of your week.